You are listening to Beyond the Wheel, a podcast about the people and ideas that drive the RV community forward.
Looking to get out there and stay out there? Battleborn Batteries lithium-ion batteries are here to power your RV, marine, and off-grid adventures. Designed as an easy drop-in replacement for traditional lead-acid batteries, these reliable solutions have 2 to 3 times the power, charge 5 times faster, are a fifth of the weight, and last 10 times longer. Offered in a variety of models in unique sizes and shapes, ranging from 50 amp hour to a robust 270 amp hour. And backed by a 10-year warranty. Battleborn batteries are built to fit your needs and power your experiences. On the road, on the water, and off the grid, reliable power is here. Check them out at battlebornbatteries.com.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Beyond the Wheel podcast. Sean and Kenny here, and we're talking about when RVing goes wrong. So just recently, I had some roadside mishaps. Had to call for a tow truck. Never had to do that before. So I want to kind of share that experience with you. I know Sean's got some experiences of when things go wrong also with RVing to share with you. You know, I thought it was an important topic, and I thought it was something that I could share with you because things happen that you don't really think of. And I kind of take RVing for granted of just how easy things are in RV. And when you have your RV taken away for 3 weeks, just how difficult things become, especially in our scenario, because we do have our dog. But even without Belle, it would have been really a hassle either way. Belle definitely added an extra layer of hassle, but it would have been a hassle either way. I can say, you know, I've been awfully lucky in these last 8 years that I've never had a breakdown like this before. I've never had to have our RV towed before. With 168,000 miles is when it happened. So, you know, I can't complain too much, but I'll be doing a little bit of complaining during the episode. So I guess this makes me a real RVer now that I've had to call for a tow truck on my RV. And Sean, I know that you've had some issues too.
I think it's scary just to call a tow truck for an RV because they're those big tow trucks usually, and they're pretty expensive. So you know right away it's going to be, when you got to call a tow truck, it's going to put a dent in your wallet.
Yeah, it's trouble. Yeah, the tow truck that came out was probably almost the size of our Class A motorhome, which also, you know, that's an expensive tow because of the type of vehicle we are in. It's a bus style RV. Even though we're only 28 feet long, it would have been very expensive. I don't have a price on the actual tow. The company that we went through actually didn't charge us for the tow because they had just done work to our RV the week before. They kind of felt bad about us breaking down after it literally kind of just left their shop. We only made it 90 miles, and what happened is we had a caliper go bad. Brake caliper went bad. I might be describing this a little incorrectly, but brake caliper went bad. Grabbed hold of our rotor there and heated up our bearing. Our bearing seized in our rear axle, and we actually snapped our passenger side rear axle. The way to describe it, while I was driving along the road, no problem. I heard a weird screeching sound. I started to slow down, not purposely try to slow down. It almost felt like the RV slipped into neutral. I felt, to me, that it was a transmission problem. I put it in neutral and then tried to put it back in drive. Nothing was happening. So I was able to coast over to the side of the road. I was actually leaving Withville, Virginia. I was heading to the Overland Expo to work a show for Winnebago. And, you know, I'll discuss the bad things that happened, but also just how lucky we were as far as timing goes. Yeah, it almost felt to me as if the RV had slipped into neutral and I had no power. Got over to the side of the road, got out of the RV, took a look, and smoke is coming out of our passenger side rear wheel hub assembly. Called the shop that we had work done to because they did our brakes and rotor. We just got new brakes and rotors put on the rear. Explained to them, you know, hey, you know, I'm only about 90 miles away from your shop. We just broke down. They sent a tow truck out for us. It was there within about 3 hours. We grabbed some stuff out of the RV because I had to keep on going to work the event for the weekend, they actually towed the RV back to their shop while I continued on to go work the show. Found somebody to take care of Belle, so this was also part of the this will fall into lucky category. Is one, we didn't have to pay for that tow. Two, we were in an area that Sabrina and I used to live in, which is called Roanoke, Virginia, and Belle's old trainer lives in Roanoke, so we were able to let Belle stay with her for the 5 days while I worked the Overland show. So we got lucky that way. Another way we got lucky is typically we would have had to pay for a hotel because I was working the show that weekend. I called Winnebago and said, "Hey, we just broke down, broke a rear axle. I don't have my RV this weekend now to work the show." Usually, what happens is Winnebago gets me a campsite on property of the show, and I stay in my RV and just work the show from the RV. I explained to them what happened, and unfortunately, they just ate the cost on me staying there on property. Plus, they paid to have a hotel for me as close to the show as possible. There's nothing near the show. So I had about a 35-minute commute in. But Winnebago was super nice about getting me a hotel for 5 days. So that saved me the fact that I didn't have to pay for a hotel for 5 days. But in a totally different scenario, if I was just driving somewhere, that would have been we find a dog sitter. We would have had to pay for a hotel for 5 nights. We might have possibly had to pay for that very expensive tow. I would imagine, Sean, a tow for a Class A motorhome because of like the vehicle that they send out. I'm going to say I bet you that would have been a $2,000 tow right there. Would be my guess.
Yeah, when we were broke down in Texas and the sheriff came to assist us, he said that a tow truck for an RV in that area was between like 2,000 and 2,500.
Mm-hmm. I believe it. Yeah. So I think, like I said, a lot of things to get lucky. Some of the funny things that happened, though, like Sabrina and I try to find humor in everything. This was frustrating at the time, but then we laugh about it later. Sean, I was telling you, like we had pulled safely over to the side of the road. We were lucky in the sense our RV is enormous. The fact that we were able to pull over into a shoulder area that was wide enough, like it happened in an area that we had a wide enough shoulder to fit and not block traffic. And I felt pretty good about that until VDOT came by. They parked behind us. I was on the phone trying to get the tow arranged. And Sabrina's talking to the VDOT person. And the VDOT person is what Sabrina explained to me anyway after I got off the phone was asking us if we could move our RV off the shoulder and down to the next exit. And Sabrina was trying to explain to them, like, we can't. It's totally broken down. We got a tow truck coming. They don't know if it's going to be 2 hours, 3 hours. And the VDOT person was giving her a hard time that we were going to be sitting there for up to 3 hours. And he really wanted us to move the RV. And she was trying to explain to him, like, it doesn't move. Like you put it in drive, you push the gas and nothing is happening. Nothing is happening. And
You should have told him you would put it in neutral and he could push.
well, she said to him, she said to him, if you can get a tow truck here sooner for us or quicker or want to help us out and move it down to the next exit, we're not going to fight you on that. But she said, we have a tow truck coming. It's kind of out of our hands here. And it's funny because another VDOT, he left. He was kind of frustrated with us. He left and another VDOT person showed up and he actually stopped and put like one of those blinking arrows up just to let people know that there's an incident up ahead. He was super helpful. He sat there doing that while the guys were, this was like 3 hours later that he showed up, but while the guys were like hooking up our RV and stuff like that. So he had the sign and he just wanted to check in. He said he didn't know that we were there. He was just checking in to see if everything was okay. He offered us water. He asked if there was anything that he could do for us. He was totally the opposite of the person that we spoke to 3 hours ago. We told him about the other guy asking us to leave. He's like, how would you leave? And we were like, that's what we were trying to explain to him. We don't know what he wanted from us. So it just depends on the person you get, I guess, sometimes on the road, how one person can be totally not useless. That's a mean thing to say, but kind of adding stress to the situation where this other guy came in and really helped us out. So it just depends on who you get sometimes.
Seems like in an RV and you need roadside assistance, it's always 2 to 3 hours before somebody's going to be able to show up, it seems like.
Yeah, and we got lucky too with the company that did do the tow for us. They had a vehicle. It's their own tow truck vehicle, and they deal with semi trucks and stuff like that. That's why we took our RV to them originally because they're used to handling like big rig vehicles. So they had a tow truck that we knew would be able to handle our RV2 to get it back to their shop. But if you call like a AAA or anybody else and you explain to them what you have, you may be waiting a long time before they can get a hold of a company that has a truck large enough to tow a Class A motorhome. Sean, for a fifth wheel, how does that work? There's not typically tow trucks that tow fifth wheels? I wouldn't think either. They're not set up for that. I wouldn't think.
I mean, in our case, when we had to call that one, it was one of those
Oh, it was.
big tow trucks, yeah.
So where did they connect at?
I don't know because we ended up not having to get it connected. We were able to get it repaired enough to be able to drive it hooked up to our truck.
Yeah, so we were able to watch them actually do the connection, and it's kind of neat how they are able to grab underneath the RV and pick it up, and how high they're able to lift up that front. We were lucky in a sense, also, like if we were towing our Jeep, so we had a vehicle that we could leave in. We didn't have to go for a ride with them and continue. We were able to continue on to the show. So I felt like that was something that we were lucky with too. Then we kind of fall into the unlucky part of the story, which is the company. This was a Wednesday. I was working Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So Wednesday we broke down. Thursday they had a chance to take a look at our RV. They assessed what the damages was, what the parts were needed. By by Thursday, they even ordered the parts that Thursday night, and they felt that they would have most of the parts in by Friday. They felt the rest of the parts were going to be in on Monday, and that they would have us back on the road by Tuesday, which is pretty good. They even felt at one time that they would have us back on the road Monday. And I told Sabrina, I said, nobody works that fast. Like, I won't expect that vehicle to be back by Monday. But I said, if they're telling us Monday, Tuesdays, I mean, even Tuesday seemed fast, but I was like, okay, we'll believe them that it's going to be ready by Tuesday. It would ended up taking 3 weeks. Like, I don't know really why that happened, but parts didn't come in on time. When the parts did come in, they realized they needed more parts. And it kind of just, it just really, to us, felt like it dragged on. And so that was an unlucky part, because we had plans to take the RV to Fort Wilderness, do our annual Disney World trip. That ended up not happening. We still went to Disney World, but we never stayed at Fort Wilderness. And I'll tell you, I could do a whole story about that, Sean, just how different Disney World is when you don't have your RV and you're not staying at Fort Wilderness campsite. It feels like a totally different vacation without our RV down in Florida. Actually, just a vacation without the RV in general felt like a totally different vacation, because again, there's hurdles of what to do with Belle, pet fees at hotels. All of our meals had to be out compared to being able to like make your own breakfast before you hit the parks, and just totally, totally different experience that way. But we did get really lucky in the sense, lucky again in the sense that Sabrina's mom owns a timeshare. She had some points and stays that she was just going to lose for the year. So we were able to get into a timeshare. I stayed in a hotel for the first couple nights. Then we moved into a timeshare for a little bit. Sabrina had some H honor points, so we used some points for that hotel that we just needed for the first couple nights. So we got lucky there. We just paid a pet fee. These pet fees really add up though, Sean. Like, some places were like 75 a night. Some were 150 for your stay. One place was really nice. I was only at one place for one night. And I said, you know what? They asked if I almost felt like the guy was trying to give me out. He's like, oh, is that a service dog? And I said, no, she's definitely not a service dog. And he's like, well, if she's not a service dog, I have to charge you for the night. I said, that's fine. I'm used to it. I said, she would never pass as a service dog. He said, it's what did he say? It was like $150 pet fee. And he's like, you know what? He's like, it's just for one night. He's like, I have to charge you something. He's like, I'll just charge you $50. I said, that's super nice of you that you would do that. I've never stayed at one before. I think it was a Hilton Spark. I know it was Spark. I just can't remember who owns Spark, but
It's
he was,
Hilton, yeah.
is it Hilton? That was actually the night that I went back to pick up the RV when it was done. So that was back in Withville. So Hilton Spark, super nice. They had a dog park there at the hotel. I've never seen a dog park at a hotel, but I'm getting off topic. So yeah, these pet fees can really add up. 75 a night, 150 a week. Honestly, I feel like that's all we were paying for was in pet fees, because we did have points. We did use the timeshare. So all in all, $300 for the 2 weeks at the timeshare. maybe another $300 in pet fees before that timeshare and after that timeshare. So like $600 all in. And Disney didn't charge us anything to cancel the 2 weeks for the campground, which I was really surprised about. I think normally they do. We didn't call them. We didn't do anything. We just did it online. I think we just kind of got lucky again there because I think typically you lose your deposit. They even refunded our deposit. Like we lost nothing for canceling. And of course, it's Disney. I mean, that campsite was probably booked hours, maybe minutes even after we can't. Like those campsites go so fast. So I guess it's no loss to them. But I think typically there is some type of loss and fee for canceling. But the other thing is the company disconnected our 12-volt power. I have no idea why they did this, but they disconnected our 12. And I've heard of other shops doing this too, even when they're working on things that have nothing to do with the 12-volt. So like all of our food in our fridge and our freezer spoiled. And that was a big hit to us too, because we had just gone grocery shopping. The fridge and freezer was fully loaded up for the Disney trip and for the shifts over at the Overland Expo. So that was we came
I
back
bet
to the
the fridge
RV.
smelled great.
Oh my goodness, it was so horrible. Broccoli smells so bad when it's spoiled. It smelled like, I don't want to say dog piss. Like you open up the door, it's like, what is that smell? Why does it smell so bad? And like, what did these guys do in here? And then you open up the refrigerator and it's like, oh my God, the broccoli's got mold on it and asparagus and all these fruits and vegetables are bad. We got rotting. I don't even remember having apples on the counter, but the apples are rotting. I don't know why the apples were rotting so quickly, but maybe just heat. The RV probably heats up during the day and then cools off. I don't know, but it was horrible. We were cleaning. Even now, I mean, this was just a couple days ago, really. I feel like Thursday, right? I picked it up or something like that. And now it's Sunday. We got Arm& Hammer in the refrigerator, in the freezer, trying to absorb all those odors. So that was a disaster. The other problem is too, like I said, we dropped it off on, they picked it up. Sorry, not even dropped it off. They picked it up for us on a Wednesday. We were hoping to have it back Monday or Tuesday. So we didn't really grab a lot of stuff out of the RV. We just grabbed what we needed for the weekend and for the show. But then when we found out that we weren't getting it back Monday, Tuesday, the guy was even like, to be honest with you, he's like, I really thought we would have you out of here tomorrow. But now that the parts didn't come in, I can't even give you an estimate. Like he had no, he's like, I don't think it'll be done this week. He said, hopefully by next week, which it wasn't that next week either, but it was already lifted and they already had the wheels and the axle out and stuff like that. And it was in their shop. We couldn't open the slides and get stuff out of it for our Disney trip. So literally we just went down to Florida with our backpacks and luckily we had stuff for Belle, but we ended up buying, stopping at a Petco and getting her more food because we couldn't get the food out of the RV without opening the slides. So it kind of turned into like a total debacle, which of course, I mean, you break down on the side of the road and you got your whole life in there. At that point, I was already 2 months in of my 3-month trip of being in the RV. So everything's in that RV. Luckily, I did grab my computer. I say luckily, I didn't really use the computer too much, but I didn't have my recording stuff. So I didn't have this microphone. I didn't have my headset. I didn't have the little plug adapter for my computer to be able to plug that stuff into, even if I did have it. So that's why this episode's coming out a little late. We had to wait until I got some of my equipment back.
What's good news about this, Kenny,
Hmm.
is that when I used to be on social media anyway, people always complained about RV service and how it takes so long and
Mm-hmm.
at like Camping World and things like that. But you weren't at a RV service place and it still took a while. So it's not necessarily the RV service centers that are the problem. It's the whole machine behind that, like parts and things like that slow the whole system down.
Yeah, this was not an RV place at all. Like they deal mostly with trucks, semis, delivery vehicles. They work on RVs too, but that's not their main thing. Main thing is tractor trailer stuff and delivery vehicle stuff. And it really was a problem with parts. They told me it was a Ford parts issue that because they even mentioned tariffs being part of the problem and getting these parts. Some of the parts are built in Canada and coming to the United States, and Ford couldn't get the parts here in the US. For even a vehicle like this, that there's so many of these, they actually ended up ordering parts for F550 because some of the parts are interchangeable, brake lines and stuff like that. It's the same brake lines that they would use on a F53 chassis. So got kind of lucky that way that they were able to think outside of the box a little bit. I'll share cost though, because it did end up being really costly for us. You're talking about a rear axle brake, new bearings, new brake rotors again, because the caliper seized up, burned up that caliper. So they were super nice that they covered the tow, but we had to pay for all new rotors again. So we already and new brakes again. So all in all, we were five, six, seven, like $7,500 for the initial brake rotor change, and then to do the brakes and rotors again, plus the new rear axle, hub assembly, new bearings. As lucky as we got with how everything went, it still cost us $7,500. So I don't know. I'm gonna put lucky in quotes. Like it's still a very, very expensive mishap, I guess would be the best word for it. Just a very expensive mishap. And you know what? That's even with me being, I feel pretty vigilant about trying to stay on top of mechanical stuff and really keeping an eye on the RV. Back in March, I had another company inspect our brakes and inspect our rotors just in March. So you're only talking 6 months later, and then we had a failure. And in March, they gave us the all clear. They're like, "Oh yeah, your brakes, your rotors, everything looks great." Now, of course, they're not like testing calipers and stuff like that, and that's where this issue happened. But, I try to always get a second set of eyes on things, especially because we live, our home base, our home state is Arizona, and we don't have state inspections. So I try to bring our RV, I try to inspect as much as I possibly can on my own. But I also like to bring our RV and have work done to our RV by professionals as well, so that one, they might see something that I wouldn't normally see because we're not doing state inspections. I like having other people look over our RV. They gave our RV the all clear just in March, not that long ago, really. I mean, 6 months, 7 months ago. So even trying to like, even when you're trying to do everything right, bad things can still happen. A breakdown can really just happen for, I wouldn't say no reason, but it just does happen. And we do have a ton of miles, and that now has Sabrina thinking, oh, we got 106, actually hit 170,000 miles on our RV today. I told her, I said, it's still a good RV. Like it's still mechanically sound. Yes, that was a bad situation, and that's terrible. And sure, other things can break down. But I actually feel like kind of the opposite. We use our RV so much that I think the worst thing for like things to happen is like sitting and stuff. I said, we're always going to be doing repairs and keeping up with it because we do use it so much. But I said, I wouldn't be afraid to keep on using it. I don't think that's something that you got to be fearful of that now other things will break. Although I did say her, I was like, the next big thing that could probably go wrong with our RV is probably our transmission. Like we've got a lot of hard miles of Colorado and towing and mountain climbs. Like I'm headed up to New Mexico right now. It's 8,000 feet is the campground that I'm going to. So I said to her, I said, we did have our transmission looked at not too long ago. We had the transmission fluid drained and they inspected it and everything looks good. But again, you just never know. Even with inspections and stuff, you just, look good today, but it might be terrible tomorrow.
Did you have any, like, lights come up on your dash or anything when that axle broke, or it was just the car it wouldn't move anymore?
Yeah, so we had one light come on. It was our ABS light, and it was like on and off, like snap of your finger, or at least that I saw anyway. Like I heard that sound, the ABS light lit up, turned right back off again. That was it. No engine light, no other errors come up on our screen. Now we do have a 2016. It's possible that in a more modern vehicle, it would have had maybe a sooner warning system or even a light stay on or something like that for this issue. I'm not really sure that's true or not. But yeah, we didn't have much as far as as far as our dash lighting up. It was literally ABS light lit up for a few seconds, if that, and was back off again. It wasn't like, yeah, there was really almost no warning. I was just driving down I-10. I heard that weird screeching sound, almost like I applied the brakes, but I didn't. Then no power, just loss of power. And like I said, I really thought it was because we do have so many miles. I really thought our transmission had just gone or that it slipped out of gear, which it's never done before. But I was like, I've heard of this happening before. So I thought they were one of the two things that happened.
And then when that one side broke, did it mess up the work that they had done on the other side as well?
Apparently not. So they did inspect it. They said that they took a look at the driver's side. And I guess that's kind of a good thing is that they're just like my Jeep too. Like it's a solid axle, it's called a solid axle, but it is in two parts. So you do have a passenger side and your driver side of everything. Everything's broken down into two, and then it connects into that pumpkin or differential. And they said that everything on my driver's side looked fine. So that original rotor, the brakes, everything that they did on that side, the hub assembly, they did bearings on that side. Everything on that side was perfectly fine. That side didn't need anything done to it. They thought everything on that side looks good. Yeah, so that's $7,500. Well, it includes the brakes and rotors all around, but the repair part after they towed us was $5,300. That was $5,300 all went into just the passenger rear axle. So it was the axle, hub assembly, bearings, brake caliper, new rotor, and new brakes, brake line. I mean, it definitely adds up. Like, for all the work they did, and they did cut us a deal on the labor too, because like I said, they felt kind of bad that it was just in their shop the week before and that they didn't catch that the caliber, was bad, when doing the work to that side. I think it's, something that you think about, like, maybe in your car, alright, you break down in your car and you get towed. It's a bad situation, but your whole life isn't in your car. Whereas there was just so you'd really honestly, I as much as I enjoy RVing, I think I really still took the RV for granted, just how great RVing is, and the fact that I have everything with me at all times. And I take that for granted because when we were down in Florida with just our backpacks, I was like, man, I'm not used to this at all. I was like, I got no kitchen, I got no place for Bell. Like, it was like shell shock, and it was just constantly like, I felt like every day was like, "All right, what are we gonna do today for food? What are we gonna do today, with Belle? What's Belle gonna where's Belle gonna go?" Like, it just seemed like a lot of juggling, trying to use points for a hotel, and the amount of times that we had to carry, like, our stuff. So I had a backpack, Sabrina had a backpack, we both had bags, we got Belle's bag. It was like probably a total of, I wanna say 7 bags between all 3 of us, and every time you switch to hotels and stuff, I don't feel comfortable leaving anything in the Jeep, so you're unpacking the Jeep into a hotel room, then you're bringing everything back out, even if you're just there for the night, and then you go to another hotel and everything comes back out of the Jeep. It was a lot. It was definitely a lot to keep. It seemed like a lot of hassle, a lot of hassle. Hopefully, it doesn't sound like I'm just complaining to complain, but it just really seemed like a lot of hassle not to have our RV. Even between the 2 of us, like, a situation like this might kinda turn us off from RVing, but I think this actually kind of solidified the reasons why we do RV and just how great and convenient things are, obviously, when things are going well, to have the RV, and just how easy life is with the RV rather than without it, especially traveling and having a dog with us. It's definitely great. It was a little frustrating, definitely. I'll tell you what else though, more Sabrina than me. Sabrina was scared to be on the side of that road.
That was a
And
question I was gonna have, Kenny, is did you have, like, triangles or flares or anything like that with
we
you?
have we have little cones, and we're gonna upgrade our cones. We did not feel as if our cones were large enough or bright enough. We're going to invest in something better to highlight that we are on the side of the road. I had my four-way flashers on, which obviously I just, that's just standard stuff. And we had these little, I mean, baby cones they're as tall as the microphone that I'm using right now. They're orange, but they're not high reflective. They're not, I don't know. We didn't
Yeah,
feel confident.
I think now they make them with, like, LED lights
That's what I
and
want. Yeah,
yeah.
I want something with a light. I didn't have flares. I would have thrown a flare out there if I had a flare. To be honest with you, when the VDOT guy stopped, I thought he was stopping to throw a couple flares out. We were lucky, like I said, that we could fit all the way over onto the shoulder and we were completely off the road. But when those semis go by, Sabrina didn't like it. She was very nervous to be on the side of the road. All it would take is somebody else to have some type of failure and to drive right in the back of us. I told Sabrina, I said, it's up to you if you want to stay outside the vehicle or if you want to stay inside the RV. Honestly, I don't know what's safer. I felt staying in the RV was safer than just being on the side of the road. Because I said to her, I was like, if if somebody else would lose control and drive into us, I said, they'd be hitting the Jeep first and then have to go through the tow bar and then hit us. I said, I feel like we'll have a little bit of crumple zone there because of the Jeep. She was very nervous. And these trucks, when they go by, they shake the RV. So we were in the RV for a little while. Then we were standing outside and then we walked all the way up to like a fence line. So we were maybe only 25 feet off the side of the road, 30 feet. You're still pretty close to the road though. Yeah, we're definitely going to invest in larger cones, flares. I like the idea of LED lights because you just recharge them and, I don't have to try to strike. I know that the flares strike pretty easy, but I wish we would have had flares or something a little bit more. I'm telling you, these little baby cones that we had, they were really terrible. They I want to say that they were useless. One thing I did though before this trip, and I was happy I had them, was that I updated the brake lights on my Jeep TJ to LED ones. So at least when they do flash, I mean, they were doing more than the cones would. So I was pretty happy that I did at least have the LED lights on the back of the TJ. But it was kind of stressful to be on the side of that road with anybody familiar with I-81. It's just you're moving pretty well down that road. It's a big highway, so it
And
was a
it's
little scary.
popular with, semi trucks too, I think. Instead of 95,
Oh
they
yeah.
take 81.
Oh yeah, I felt like 50% of the vehicles going by us were definitely semis, and it pushes. You're on the shoulder, so you're leaned a little bit already. And when they go by and they push us to the side a little bit, it was tough. I didn't want to put my jacks down or anything like that in case there was more issues going on with the RV. I didn't want a situation where we couldn't bring the jacks back up. So I didn't leave. I don't. Or did I put the jacks down? I probably shouldn't have, but I think I did put the jacks down to help stabilize us. But I really don't remember. I don't think I did. I don't think I did. The jacks would have stabilized us, but like I said, I think I was afraid that if something was more serious with the RV, because at the time we didn't really know what was going on with it. I was afraid that maybe we couldn't bring the jacks back up. Even though we were scared on the side of the road, Sabrina's pretty level headed. I mean, Sabrina's a physician. She's ICU doctor. She's used to staying level headed or at least thinking clearly in stressful situations. So, we were able to get a hold of our insurance and we got a hold of roadside assistance. That didn't really help us though. The roadside assistance unfortunately didn't help us at all. But we were able to make the phone calls. We knew all right, we got to collect the stuff for Bell for the weekend. We got to find a spot for Bell for the weekend. We got to notify Winnebago, let them know what's happening and let them know I'm still planning on making it to the show. I was the only one working the show too. Like typically we have a team of at least 3 people from Winnebago. It's usually me and then 2 actual Winnebago employees because I'm not an employee of Winnebago. Everything I do is freelance with them. Usually there's like a real team. This was the first show that they're like, you know what? We'll just send Kenny on his own. I had to call and be like, hey, I just broke down on my way to the show. But
But, I think, being an RVer, you just kind of have to prepare for at some point, you're gonna break down and be
yeah,
stuck on the side of the road. You just have to have that plan and know that it's gonna happen at some point if you do it long enough. And I think
yeah,
you've been lucky, like,
it's
I
really
think you've
lucky.
only
It's the
been
first time.
yeah, and you have
First time
what?
that we've broken down and had to be towed. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
160,000 miles, that's pretty good.
that's pretty good. And it's funny too, like, I feel like this is kinda just like RV life. Like you said, Sean, you gotta I've talked to well, you're military too, and I've talked to a lot of military. I remember interviewing some military, Winnebago has, Mil-Wit, it's called. I remember talking to them, all of them were retired military, and I asked them, "Did the military prepare or help you in any way for RV life?" And they said that they felt the military prepared them to be kind of ready for anything, be able to pivot, be able to be flexible because like as great as RVing is, things are going to go wrong and you have to be able to adapt and overcome, I think was the terms that they use. So they felt that their military training was very useful in RV life, which sounds kind of funny because you think of RV, well, you're supposed to just vacation, but you kind of have to be ready for everything, I think. When things go wrong and they create good stories, right? If everything was perfect all the time, we'd have no funny stories and you'd haven't, the fact that, the VDOT guy gave us a hard time is now a funny story to us. Things that aren't funny is like the shop told us that it'd be ready Monday. and it wasn't ready for another 3 weeks. I mean, that's not that wasn't too funny. I think it does help in, your storytelling. So this is the first time I'm talking about any of this. Like, we didn't post this on our moving forward adventures social media, nothing like that. More so because I feel like if I would have, especially at the time, it would have been negative posts. And Sabrina and I try to stay as positive as we can in real life, and we try to do that the same, kind of be the same with our social media stuff. I know other social media people, this is what I mean, this is the best case scenario right here is like, oh, trouble in paradise type of thing. And that's what you want to talk about online stuff. But I said to Spring, I said, I think if we go on social media now, it's going to be all negative and it's just going to make us angrier. It's going to make us more frustrated. So I said, we'll talk about it on social media. And of course, I'm going to talk about it here on the podcast, but let's give it some time and cool off and be able to look back on it and not be posting angrily in the moment type of thing. Neither one of us really wanted to do that. Actually, we haven't been on social media for 3 weeks. We haven't made a post on Instagram or anything. We really took that pledge serious, I guess. Seriously, it's been probably over 3 weeks now since we
And
posted
when
anything.
you think back on it, I think it could have been a lot worse.
I think
Like,
so too.
you could have been even from the beginning, you could maybe not been able to get to the side of the road.
I think of that, the fact that there was a shoulder big enough to hold, we're with our mirrors, we're 10 feet wide. If there was no shoulder like where we were, we'd literally just block that lane. I couldn't move it. It would not, it felt like it was a neutral. There wouldn't have been anything that we could have done. And that would have been super. Think about like how nervous we were on the side of the road. I couldn't imagine how nervous we'd be in the road. So absolutely, 100%. This could have gone way worse, which is another reason why we gotta invest in better. What would you call it, Sean? Like better, not highlighters. They're not called highlighters. Like roadside traffic
Safety,
alert,
roadside
safety.
safety
Just
items. I don't.
yeah, we need
Yeah,
a better roadside safety item. I even thought maybe something I could put on the top of the Jeep to highlight that we're in distress or that, don't hit us. Don't drive into the back of us. Because like I said, these cones were so miniature. It was a little windy that day too, so the cones would get blown and pushed over. Like it was a disaster. These cones were a joke. Just total joke. So if anybody's listening and you don't take anything away from this, invest in good roadside safety gear, whether that be flares or something that's really made to be more helpful. I felt like these cones were adding stress to the point that we didn't even put them out. Like we took them out of the bay and looked at them. We like, these are don't blow away. Like they're not even heavy enough to handle this wind. Like you set them down and they tipped right over. So we're like, these are don't blow into the highway and cause an accident. We were honestly just relying on the new LED lights that we have on the back of the Jeep as our safety. And like I said, we were all the way over on the shoulder with a smidgen of space. Like I said, we're almost 10 feet wide. So we took up that entire, nobody ever clipped our mirror, nothing. Even the tractor trailers didn't clip our mirror, nothing. So yeah, definitely have some, at minimum, we're going to need like those triangles. But I want more than that. I want more, something larger than the triangles. If maybe they make an LED triangle, that would be pretty cool. Something that flashed.
we don't have any good safety stuff either. So I've always thought about it, and I just have never bought it.
What I'm going to do is get that stuff and I'll put it in the Jeep because I never drive the RV without the Jeep, and then I'll have it for the Jeep and I'll have it for the RV. Like it'll, I think that'll be the best. Well, maybe I will keep it in the RV. I don't know, but I'm definitely getting something more than what we have. And I know at one time, Sean, years and years ago, 4 years ago, we interviewed a company that was making like pucks that lit up that stood on top of a cone. I can't even remember the name of them, but maybe I'll go back and take a look at that episode and see because they were rechargeable LEDs that flashed. I think they had a flashlight on them so you could light up what you were working on. Plus, so like one side was a light, the other side was the distress signal.
Plus, I think they
Um,
could be run over maybe by a
yeah, I
certain
think they were
weight.
strong enough to be like they
Yeah.
were almost like hockey pucks, like strength wise. And then you could like set them on top of cones. You could lay them on the ground. You could, I was thinking I'd throw them on top of the Jeep as long as I remember to grab them before, before driving away or something like that. I guess that's always worried. I mean, the best thing is kind of be patient, try to keep your cool. I mean, that's going to be your best bet in any of these situations. Even something simple like, when I first called the shop and I was trying to get the tow, know where you are. That's not always the easiest thing when you're on a highway. Like I was able to tell them that I was on I-81 and literally we broke down right at a mile marker. Like I opened up I opened up the door and the mile marker was like right there. So I was able to say, "Hey, I'm at aisle my mile marker, 144 on I-81. I could see the exit that was coming up. So I told him what exit was the next exit. So I was able to give him a really good description of where I was. But stuff, even like simple stuff like that, just before you call anybody, make sure you have all the information you need, insurance information. We were hoping that our insurance would help cover any of these bills because we've had friends that had breakdowns and insurance did, but our insurance did not cover. They were like, this is just wear and tear insurance. If you were in an accident and it caused a problem, we would have helped with repairs. But because this just failed, nobody else was involved. It was just your single vehicle. Then, but we tried. We tried to get the insurance to cover a little bit of that. That's the $5,500 portion of the bill. But yeah, no such luck. But I would still recommend you try, go through your insurance and let them know what happened. Because we've had friends that had like their car break down and insurance helped them and help cover a little bit of their mechanical failure. For anybody listening, this is a great opportunity for somebody else to share their story. Either you can do it in our YouTube channel, you can reach out to us and just email us and share your story and we'll share it on the air.
I would say too, Kenny, that this highlights another important aspect of particularly if you're going out for months in your RV or full timing, is always have like an emergency fund for when something like this happens because you might not have hotel points or anything like that, but you got to find a place to stay and you don't want to have to rely on like a GoFundMe or something to help you through that situation.
That is a great point, Sean. I'm actually embarrassed that I didn't think of that myself. I should point out, maybe I shouldn't point out. I don't know if that we do have an emergency fund. So we didn't have to put anything on credit. We were able to afford maybe I shouldn't say this on the air, but we were able to afford the $7,500 between the initial repair and the breakdown repair. And we were able to pay in cash. And they actually gave us like a 4% discount for paying in cash.
Yeah, I think that's important for people because, I mean, that could compound your troubles if you're having to put all that on credit or borrow money or something like that to pay for it. Then it ends up costing even more. And it's a little more stressful too.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's very common because the shop, when we were talking to them about the repair, and they gave us like a rough estimate of what it would cost. The girl even said to us over the phone, "We know this is a lot of money. If you guys need time to save up the money, collect the money somehow, if you need to leave this RV with us for a month, and then let us know when you're ready to do the repair. We're okay. We have room. We have space. She said, we won't even charge you like storage fee or anything like that. If you just want to leave it here with us for a month, come up with the money and pay for it later. And we said, that's super nice of you. We appreciate you giving us that offer. But one, I don't want to go. At the time, especially then because it was Thursday and they were saying that they could have it ready Monday. I was like, I don't want to go a month without my RV. We ended up going 3 weeks without it. But, at that time, Sabrina and I said, we really appreciate you guys giving us that opportunity and offering us that to us. I said, but well, luckily we are okay. We can afford to pay the repair. Sometimes you're almost afraid to tell somebody that though, because then they're like, oh, well, if you can afford that, well, maybe we should be charging you for the tow. We'll just add on more things. Withville Auto and Truck was the company that we dealt with. And all in all, I think it turned out to be a pretty good experience. We were very frustrated in the beginning, but it did work out. So, like I said, you listening to this story and recounting these steps, it could have gone a lot worse. Things could have probably gone a little better. But I think all in all, really, I mean, we got as lucky as you could in a situation like this. And I almost want to tell you, like, if you haven't broken down yet in your RV, knock on wood, because it's probably coming someday. Fortunately, there's going to be some point, some time that something like this will probably happen. But when it does, remember, just stay calm, collect all the information. In hindsight, we would have taken more out of our RV, even though they told us 4 or 5 day repair. I think in hindsight, we couldn't grab everything out of the fridge and freezer. We wouldn't have had a place to put it, but we would have definitely grabbed more clothing. We didn't even have t-shirts with us for the 3 weeks. Try to think of like worst case scenario and plan for a worst case scenario, because you're probably more likely that the repair will go on for weeks than just days, especially in RVing. I mean, we've known people to have months and months and months of RV repairs go on, even when they're not even like huge repairs. It's just, unfortunately, it is the norm. Yeah. So take care, everybody. Be safe out there. Definitely drop us a line. Let us know either through email, Kenny at beyondthewheelpodcast.com or Sean at beyondpodcast.com. You can also leave us a message in our YouTube videos. Every podcast becomes a YouTube video. It is all audio only, but that's a great way for you guys to interact with us also. But we want to wish you safe travels. Coming up next, Sean, I think, is our old friends from FMCA is going to come on the show. I should say used to be FMCA. They're now the RVA. And that's part of the reason why they're coming on the show, kind of talk about a lot of the changes that they're going through right now. So I think that'll be a lot of fun. And I look forward to catching back up with them. It's been a minute since we've chatted with them. So stay tuned for that. And that'll be in about 2 weeks after this episode airs. So take care, everybody. Safe travels.